All right, here we go. Welcome into Hawk Talk on Melrose. I am Collin, joined today with not just Tyler, but a special guest live down in Nashville, my brother Kolby. What seems like the one and only episode he gets on, but it's one of the most important episodes of the year because it's our last one before the season starts, our final season predictions. It's one of my favorite episodes anyways. I'm glad to have Kolby. Welcome back onto the show. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm pumped to be back on. Like you were saying, it means that we're a week away. I mean, I think we've been doing this, 4 years now, 4 or 5 years, whatever it's been. So it's excited to get, I'm glad to hit the ground running. I think we're all ready for the season to start. We're over trying to search the forums for any little bit of information that we can take and, run with it and overreact. But no, it's good to be here. I'm excited. I think this year poses a lot of variables. I think this is a season that I come into, you and I were talking last night, it can go a lot of different ways. I think this is a talented Iowa team, but a schedule that we haven't faced in a long time. So obviously we'll get into this later, but it's good to be back.
Just to clarify, we are actually recording this a day before week 0, so the day before Iowa State, Kansas State. So we have no idea right now how that Iowa State game is going to look like tomorrow. So when we're doing these predictions, because this episode will come out on Sunday night, might change a little bit depending on how good or, if Iowa State looks really good and things like that. So just to clarify there, but I can't forget you, Tyler. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, it's kind of add on what Kolby was saying. It's like this, the season prediction episode is always fun. It's also always really interesting to look back because, man, I've been really wrong before. And right now it's all great optimism and feeling good, and that's the off season. And then obviously once you get into the thick of it, it could go a different direction in a hurry. But yeah, no, I agree. I'm excited to dive right into it.
I think real quick that you saying that, I think we go back to that 2023 episode where, we were fully convinced we
turned the page.
Yeah. We had a new transfer quarterback. And I mean, even heading into last year, I think there was that cautious optimism. I think last year didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, but I think we took away last year that we found I think last year was twofold because if you go back and watch our episode, we were bullish on the offense making a step. We believed in Cade. That didn't turn out, but I think we all would look back and say that Ferentz made the right hire in Tim Wester, and all of us are excited. So we were wrong on our predictions, but I don't think that we were wrong in believing in Tim Wester.
All right, let's get into now the more of the season predictions and things like that. We're going to start first. The biggest concern entering the season for you guys. Kolby, you can go first, Tyler, and then I can go.
I mean, this one's easy for me. I think that it's kind of an underrated one, but it's been talked about a little bit, is that we've been burned, and this is probably some PTSD for me and a lot of Iowa fans, but we've been burned by the quarterback position now since Nate Stanley. And I think my biggest concern is that, Mark not being a go in the spring is a little rusty, and our fan base turns on him quick because we do. I mean, again, we have PTSD. We've been burned many times. The Cade situation was extremely difficult. I'm concerned about that position. Although I think we're healthier and we have more depth, I'm concerned that we're not going to see the jump that we'd hoped right away. And I think that, if we don't see that, we could very well be 1-1 after that Iowa State game. And so I'm concerned about that position. I feel better about it than I have in 5 years while also still being concerned. So that's my top concern right now. I really hope that, over these past couple weeks, Gronowski has made that jump and started getting on time. We all know he has talent. But again, there's going to be a jump from, FCS ball to FBS. And so I'm very anxious. I'm curious to see, how that transition goes.
I wonder, and I remember when the news came out back in January about how he was going to miss spring ball. And I think you got mad at me because I kind of took it too, but I did say, I think it's bigger news than what people are making it out to be, because that's huge. I mean, spring ball is very important, and especially for a guy like Mark, who is jumping to another, from FCS to FBS, to develop that chemistry, the timing, the speed of the game, going up against Big Ten athletes. And I do think if he would have played in the spring, I do think as of right now, he probably would be a little bit better when it comes to that rust and the timing and things like that. So it does sound like he is progressing. It sounds like the first couple of days were pretty rough, but as it's gone on, it's gotten better.
We haven't really gotten to see much, into the camp. We've heard tidbits here and there.
Yeah.
Take that with what you will. The one thing that we have gotten to see was Kids Day, which was, there were some good plays. I mean, there were some shots downfield, and then things were closed off. And the only other people that had been able to see him was the Big Ten crew. And they were all confident that he would be the best quarterback since at least Nate Stanley. And so I'm confident that he can get there. I'm just worried about the start of the season with so many high stakes games right off the bat. Obviously, those first 3 weeks outside Iowa State are going to be nice for him to get acclimated. But going into Ames week 2, a place where Iowa State hasn't won against Iowa since 2011. They're going to be geared up. I think a lot's going to, we're going to see a lot. Obviously, we're recording this before Iowa State has played. But my hope is that Gronowski can get on the same page as receivers. He has some weapons this year, and hopefully we can get stuff going there.
Kolby, that's a great point. It's like how patient is the Iowa fan base going to be right away? Yeah. Because it might not be perfect, right? It's going to take some time, and I think everyone might think now it's. Well, we got Mark, and so now it's supposed to be all fixed. And it's like, well, it might not be perfect right away. That's a great point. So I just put down like how we're going to do against, I would consider kind of like the big 3 on the schedule, which I would throw in there: Indiana, Penn State, and Oregon. Are we going to be competitive in those games? Are we going to win a game or 2 maybe? In the last, I think I looked it up. It's like the last 3 years, obviously, again, we haven't had a quarterback, but 0-7 against ranked opponents, with an average margin of defeat by about 25 points. We just haven't been competitive in big games. That's kind of been the big storyline with Iowa. We know how we can do against the teams that we're supposed to beat, right? We're always in those games. But the bigger games, we just haven't been competitive in the last 3 years or so. So that's my biggest concern. We've got 3 big ones. They're all at home. It's perfect opportunity to go steal a game or 2 against one of those big dogs. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see it. I feel good, but at the same time, yeah, it's 3 huge games. So if you go 0-3, I feel like it's kind of a disappointment.
My biggest concern, and you can obviously say linebacker, corner, but it's on the offensive side of the ball for me, and it's the second most important position on the offense. Obviously, number 1 is quarterback, and Kolby touched on quarterback, but the second one is left tackle. You got to protect the quarterback, and we think the offensive line is going to be really good, and I feel really good about the 4 others. I'm just a little concerned about the left tackle, and that's such an important position. You can't be bad there. I don't care how good you are at the rest. You cannot be bad there. And so if we go into the season and, what if Trevor or if it's Jack, what if they just not quite there yet? It could make for a long season when your left tackle is bad. I mean, we've seen it before. Go back during like the Petrus era. It's like our left tackle was not very good. Obviously, 2020 it was with Wirfs, but then after that year, someone actually commented on my last on our last episode, and I thought it was spot on. He was like, "Can you imagine if Caden Proctor was here? Because he would solve that left tackle. I mean, our line would be literally so good." And I kind of forgot about that. That it's just for me. I'm hoping that one of the 2 can be good and be decent for us. Almost kind of be like a Mason Richmond, because Mason Richmond to me wasn't some dominant player, but he was consistent. He did what he needed to do to be pretty good, and that's just what I'm hoping for. But it is a concern for me because if it's not good, then it's Mark's blindside. All right, let's go now to a little bit, maybe more some positive. What are you most excited for entering the season?
I was thinking about this last night, Collin, after you called me. I'm excited for our defensive line. I think that there's a lot of talent across that whole entire line between Max. I go back. A lot of those guys last year were waiting in the wings, and we saw the talent that Max Llewellyn had. I'm excited for him to have a full year now of being the guy. I think that guy can be, a starter in the NFL. I'm excited for that. I think that we've built depth there. I think, from what we've heard, we've gotten an absolute steal in Bryce Hawthorne, Jonah Pace, not talked about. And then you obviously have your star in Aaron Graves. And so that's a line that's deep. It's a line that's talented. And it's a line that has some up-and-comers that also have a lot of talent. You look at Epinesa. I think that guy's probably going to see the field this year. And he probably wouldn't have to. I mean, we would probably be fine without him, but if he's that talented, get him on the field. I'm excited. I think we're going to be able to create some more pressure than last year. I think last year we ended the year sub 30 sacks for like the first time in a while. And so that's important. We got to get to the quarterback this year, especially if we're, our cornerbacks, if it's taken them a while to get on the same page, it's going to be important that we're generating pressure consistently. Especially against the schedule that we're playing. We're playing a lot of dynamic quarterback teams. We got to get to the quarterback, and I think we'll be able to this year.
Yeah, I actually watched a podcast, and they was talking about how, like, obviously we lacked depth at the D-line last year, and they felt like our starters played way too many snaps, and by the end of the season, they were just wore out and weren't really generating any pressure. Go back and look at the UCLA game where they're just throwing all the ball over the field. Michigan State running and throwing the same thing with Aiden Childs, right? So that's a great point that you brought up there. So I'll go with, I mean, this is a pretty obvious one. It's kind of the opposite of Kolby's concern. It's Mark. It's the passing game. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited about it. I think, like we just mentioned, he's probably the most talented quarterback for sure since Nate Stanley, maybe CJ Beathard. That's to be determined. But the ability to throw and run is going to be huge for this offense. I think that's kind of an underrated part about Mark's game that doesn't get talked enough about is his ability to run the football. How often will we design QB runs for him? I don't know. I don't feel like Kirk loves doing that, but he can go get you a first down on a scramble if he needs to, which I love. And then with that, it's just, the wide receivers as well. I mean, we finally hear about a solid wide receiver core that we feel good about. Collin talked about, what are we, 8 or 9, 7 or 8 deep. So feel good about a lot of guys. A lot of guys could, see the field this year and step up. And so, it's really just this passing game.
So mine kind of goes off of yours, Tyler, and it's just in general the offense with the second year under Tim Lester. Go back to last year, going into the year, we were very excited for year one, but we did realize that, or we understood that we weren't going to go from 0 to 100 in 1 year. It was going to take time. And you hear, like, after the season, Tim Lester talking about how, the verbiage for this new offense and how, like, none of the coaches even knew what was really going on going back to that first spring. So you're implementing a whole new offense. And I thought for the most part in year one, we did a decent job. It wasn't great, but we did a decent job. And Lester definitely did what he kind of told Chad before the year last year about how he wanted to cut a lot of things in half. And he did that, minus like the passing game, obviously. So now you're going into year two where all these players, most of them are back. They understand the new system. They understand the verbiage. The wide receivers understand, what they need to do for their routes and all the motions and things like that. And then you bring in a guy like Warren, who I talked about on the last episode, to help game plan and scout for the future games. Lester talked about in the spring how guys, they're just playing faster now. And I think that's going to help us in the long run. And so that's what I'm most excited for entering year two under Tim Lester. All right, let's get now into, I think last year we did 3 bold predictions, but we'll keep it at 1. If you have 2, I guess you can say it, but 1 bold prediction entering the year.
This is, I spent a lot of time. I think this goes back to, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, I don't remember a year where there's been so many variables with the team and the unknown. I think that, again, I look across the roster and I think I see a team that could be really good. And then I look at the schedule and it scares me. And so my big prediction this year is, and this might seem negative, but I think that if Iowa does not beat Iowa State in week 2, Iowa will go 7-5 on the year. And I think that week 2 is such a huge game for the program to get things right away for momentum. I think that if Iowa beats Iowa State week 2, Iowa will go 10-2 on the year. That's where that variable. I don't think there's an in between. I think that if Iowa falls to Iowa State in week 2, it's going to be a tough ride the rest of the year.
Well, you look at the last few years when we do lose to them, we end up not having a good year. 2022, what did we go 7-5, and then last year ended up. Think about if we would have won that game. I really do think the season probably maybe would have been a little bit different, but it did. It felt like I don't know, it was so depleting losing to them last year. And I'm still not over that game, by the way. I still, to this day, I get
maybe
annoyed.
that's not a bold prediction. Because like you said, now you look back at it, but I think that the way the schedule sets up this year, that if Iowa gets out of Ames with a win, things could be looking really good this year. I think that that's going to cause a lot of, I mean, especially for a quarterback like Gronowski, who is still trying to get in sync. Like,
Yep.
if he can go into Ames and he's healthy and we get out of there with a win, I think the sky's the limit for this team.
Well, I mean, if you told me right now that I was going to beat Iowa State, then that pretty much means that, yeah, Mark probably had a pretty good game. And so now that he gets to go back home, play UMass, another kind of feel out game. You're feeling pretty good by then. That's 3 weeks of, playing at this level, including one game on the road at Iowa State, going into conference play and with a lot of momentum if you are 3-0.
All right, my bold prediction is Mark Gronowski passes for 3,000 yards on the season. Listen, we know the emphasis on the passing game. It's year 2 under Tim Lester. Teams are still going to dare us to throw the ball. We're going to have to be able to throw the ball this year if we want to beat the Penn States, Oregon's, Indiana's, Iowa States of the world, right? Do I think it's impossible? No. I think Mark's a very capable quarterback. He's done it at the FCS level, granted, but he's done it before. He's passed for 3,000 yards. Yeah, I guess that's all I got for that. But I mean, I think it's not something that I necessarily see us doing, because I do think we want to be balanced, like we talked about, obviously running and passing, but there might be a game where he has to kind of put it on his shoulders. So you never know.
When was the last time we passed for 3,000 yards?
2011.
Was it 2011 with James Vanderburg? Which is still crazy to me. That was the year.
Stanley in 2019, I saw he had like 2,600 or something like that. But yeah, it's been since 2011. And then in 2011, that was the last time we had a 1,000-yard receiver in Marvin McNutt. He has the all-time that year, 1,300 yards.
So I was while you were saying that, I was trying to think of who the wide receivers were that year. But yeah, it was him, Cavante Martin-Manley, and Keenan Davis. It's not a bad wide receiver core, but that is crazy that it was 2011. I would have imagined maybe, 2015 with CJ Beathard, or one of those years with Nate Stanley, like 2019, where it did seem like, or 2018, I think, was the year where we had the two tight ends, and it seemed, we went on the road at Indiana, put up 40, 50 points, and we were throwing the ball all over the field. All right. So my bold prediction, and it's not really, I don't think it's that big of a bold prediction, because we've been hearing his name. Well, I guess, on the sites, the forums or whatever. But I'm going to say Seth Anderson leads the wide receivers in receiving yards this year. I know everybody talks Reese Vanderzee, Jacob Gill, but Seth Anderson was the best wide receiver in the spring, and he has carried that now into the fall from all the reports I have heard. And he's finally healthy. His senior year, finally healthy. You saw on the Kids Day, that was one of Mark's go-to targets. I mean, he targeted him a lot that day. I'm really high on him. You go back to 2023, the second play of the game, he does a double move, wide open touchdown. And then go to the next game in Ames, he does another double move, wide open. Unfortunately, Cade just completely overthrew him, but that would have been like a 90-yard touchdown. So he is capable. He just hasn't been healthy. He just hasn't. 2023, he was dinged up. I mean, he started off the year fine, but then got dinged up. Did not really play the rest of the year. Last year, same thing. This is his senior year, and I expect big things out of him. All right, the time is now. We are going to do our season predictions. We're not going to go game by game. So, Kolby, you go first. I guess we kind of know what your season prediction is: 7-5 or 10-2.
Yeah, that's where I don't know how to even do this, because I'm so up in the air with this Iowa State game. Okay, so I mean, I'll go through. If Iowa beats Iowa State, so we're sitting there at 1-0, 2-0. I think that Iowa finishes, if they beat Iowa State, they will go 10-2 with a loss to either Oregon or Penn State, and then I think they lose either at USC or at Nebraska. So I think they split the home against those two, and then split either at USC or at Nebraska. That's my prediction for this year. Now, if Iowa loses to Iowa State, I think things could go south in a hurry. Like I said, I think they'd lose to Iowa State. I think they end up losing both games to Penn State and Oregon. They lose at USC, and they drop one more that they shouldn't. So that's my season prediction. I know it's tough. Again, everything hinges on that Cyclone game for me. If we come out of that in 2 weeks or whatever it is, and we win, ride it with 10-2.
Well, and it's really hard for you right now because we are recording this before the Iowa State game for tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So,
you want to see how they look.
Yeah. I mean, if they look good, like they look like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And I know it's only one game.
I'll probably get some crap for that. I think it's just, we've seen year after year that when Iowa beats Iowa State, good things can happen. And I think it can be a propeller for this team because I think Iowa State is a good team. I think that would be a tough win. And I think it would show a lot about Iowa.
Well, it'd be especially if they beat Kansas State, you're talking, they're going to be ranked when we play them. And if you do go on the road and beat a ranked team, I mean, that's pretty impressive. So
Tyler, they would most likely be a top 15, maybe top 15 team.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on how they look against South Dakota next week. Yeah. It's so crazy to me that they play another game before Iowa, considering they're going to be in Dublin. So
quick question, Kolby, does Iowa or Iowa State have the advantage with Iowa State playing a big game like Kansas State, but obviously it's in Ireland? So
I don't know. I think I always go back and forth on that. I think there's some variables for both teams. I think that Iowa State, 3 weeks of playing, you iron out a lot of kinks. At the same time, playbooks are real. And Iowa State, if they were going to play Joe Schmo in Ireland, they wouldn't have to show anything. Yeah. But this is a really big game. Like, they're going to have to, they're going to show everything to win that game. And so that advantage for Iowa when it comes to tape, advantage Iowa State when it comes to just playing the games and getting your feet wet. Because, they always say that there's nothing like playing the actual game. And so I think if Iowa State comes out of Dublin with a win and they go and beat South Dakota handily, I would probably sit there and say that was an advantage to Iowa State because they're a team that's riding momentum. Now, if Iowa State loses and looks sluggish against South Dakota because a week coming back, I mean, it's tough traveling back. You might look at it and be like, should Iowa State have played that game? I don't know. So I think there's a lot of, I think there's some things for both teams, positive and negatives.
I mean, Iowa will definitely be more rested. Let's just, because they're only going to play one game. Yeah. I would say it's going to be coming off 2 games, including one overseas across the pond. And you never wish injuries, but there could be maybe a few more injuries for Iowa State because you are playing in an extra game. There's a lot of, I guess you could go either way. I think Iowa has more of the advantage, honestly. But that's just me.
Yeah. Kolby kind of really took the words out of my mouth with this Iowa State game. I think this season really hinges on that. I mean, I feel like that's really always the case. I always feel like we just talked about, we always seem to have what feels like a better year if we go and we beat our rival. With that being said, maybe I'm going with my heart over my head, but I'll say we beat Iowa State and we go 9-3. I think 9-3 right now is kind of where I look at this team as a ceiling for this team. I just think, again, we're going to probably most likely split Oregon, Penn State. I have us losing to Penn State. I have us losing at USC until we can prove that we can win on the West Coast. I don't feel good about that game. I don't like that spot. And then there's gonna be a game in there that's just it's the grind of the Big Ten. There's always a game where we just feel like, man, we should, on paper we're a better team, but it's just a tough game. Whether that's at Wisconsin, which is where I have a loss, even though there is a bye week before then, or Kolby mentioned it, at Nebraska. Nebraska's going to be a good team this year. They're going to want our number. They could be sitting there, as a potential dark horse team. Everyone keeps talking about them, but it is the offseason, so it makes sense. But I think 9-3 is my prediction. If we lose the Iowa State game, I could see 8-4, 7-5 real quick.
I kind of break the schedule up. Obviously, you have Albany and UMass, 2 wins. Go ahead of the schedule a little bit. Minnesota and Michigan State, I both expect those to be wins. Michigan State, go back to last year, what happened last year. It's senior day. And then the Minnesota game, I think that's just going to be a rowdy crowd. It's a blackout game. We remember what happened 2 years ago when PJ Fleck in Minnesota was inside Kinnick's. I expect that to be a win. That would be a big win kind of going into November, into that bye week into November. Those are 4 wins, in my opinion. And then I also think, similar to you guys, I do think we will split Penn State or Oregon. I know that's maybe a homer take, but the time is now. Like we gotta do it. We used to do it all the time. And if the offense is better than what is better kind of what we expect, we hope anyway, and the defense doesn't slide off that much and the special teams is good, yeah, give me one of those wins inside Kinnick, especially if that Oregon game's the 11 a.m. game, like they're talking, and 9 a.m. Pacific time for Oregon. I think Iowa can do the deal. And so that's one loss for sure. And then it's the Iowa State game, or okay, another game actually I think it will be a win is Rutgers. I know it's kind of maybe like a sleepy or like a trappy game, but we always do well on the East Coast Friday night. I think that's a win. So it's these 5 games of Iowa State, Indiana, Wisconsin, USC, Nebraska. Those 5 games that you could go either way. And yep. And as of now, I'm not trying to be negative or anything, but I think I could see us maybe losing like 3 out of those 5 games. Like just, whether it's at USC and, at Nebraska, Iowa State or whatever. And so if that is the case, I have Iowa going like 8-4. So one of either Penn State or Oregon has a loss, and then pick your choice between those 5 games, those 3 losses. But I will say I am closer to a 9-3 record than a 7-5 record. I guess that's at least put a little bit of optimism.
We're sitting here talking. I think it's weird. Last year we did this. The year before we did this, you would look at that schedule and say, now it didn't end up the way, but we looked at that and said that should be a win, and we've taken that as a win. This year, you're looking at that schedule being like, I don't know, we could go to Wisconsin and who knows, we could lose.
I mean, they're going to want our number. That's Wisconsin's Super Bowl, by the way. Their schedule's so hard that I think if they win that game, they're going to view that as a successful season. I could see that. Be a lot tougher game. Yeah.
Again, I a lot riding on that Iowa State game for me. I'm fired up. It scares me, but I hope that
I hate that game. I hate that game so much.
I will say
mean anything for the Big Ten.
I'm almost happier it's in Jack Trice this year. I for some reason just feel like we just play terribly in Kinnick against them. Yeah. Even when we've beaten them the last couple of years, like it hasn't looked good. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's weird.
I will say if my prediction ends up being true at 8-4, I still think, given the schedule, and if you can say we beat either Oregon or Penn State, I still think that's a pretty successful year. Go back a few years ago when we played in the West Division, one of the worst divisions in college football, going 8-4 is not successful. Right. But I think given the schedule this year, if we do finish 8-4, and obviously I hope we don't, I hope we finish 10-2 or, 11-1, but I think 8-4 wouldn't be bad if you can guarantee a Penn State or Oregon win, if you maybe guarantee like going on the road at Iowa State, or maybe go on the road and beating USC or beating Indiana at home.
I think the tough part with that is if you go 8-4 and you beat Iowa State and you split the 2 of those games, you're going to look back at that season and be like, damn.
Yeah, that is true. I guess
what went wrong? Because clearly if you beat those teams, you're talented. If we go 8-4 and doing that, beat Iowa State and split Oregon and Penn State, that means we would have had some blunders along the way. Now, I will still say, I think 8-4 is definitely a respectable record with this thing. I think we would look back though and be disappointed because of some of those wins showing us that this team's talented enough that it just didn't happen.
It is. It's crazy. This is the first year in a long time that it is just so hard to predict. It really is. I mean, it was so easy when we were in the Big Ten West and, a win, win, even though we ended up probably losing the game we shouldn't, but it was so much easier to predict a 10-2 season because the division was so bad. Well, now given the schedule, it's tough. It could go either way, but I will say this, thank God we did go out and we got, a competent quarterback, or we think he is, with Mark, given the schedule, because I remember like a year ago, I remember maybe to you, Tyler, or maybe to you, Kolby, I was like, oh boy, look at the schedule next year. That's going to be tough. And now we're here. Yeah. But we do feel good because we do think that the roster is capable, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. It's going to be a hell of a home slate. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we can't complain. Fans can't complain about marquee games anymore. I mean, this is the best of the best. 3 playoff teams. It's going to be fun.
And then not only that, but even like the quote unquote bad games, the times are great. Like Albany, 5 o'clock, almost a night game. UMass, a night game. I know not every fan likes night games, but it definitely creates
a better buzz.
A great atmosphere. And I texted you in Austin the other day. This will be the UMass game, because it's a gold out, will be the first night gold out game.
No, I actually have to. I meant to text you that's not true.
When was it? Oh, was it 2019 against Miami of Ohio?
Well, maybe. I remember 2006 against Syracuse. There was another gold out game, night game. It was actually the first Big Ten Network night game in the Big Ten Network history. I remember that.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I thought it was Ohio State 26.
That was the beginning one, and it looks sharp on TV. I'm excited that we're doing that because it will look good.
Yeah, I always thought I remember cool. I went back and watched the highlights of that game against Ohio State, and the gold out definitely does look really cool at night. And it's been a while since we've done that. So even the bad games, the times of those games is awesome. And then, Minnesota, that's always a great matchup. And once again, both fan bases hate each other, so it's always rowdy. Yeah, you can't go wrong with this home slate. If Iowa State was another home game, they would be an all-time home slate. But Indiana, Oregon, Penn State, you can't get much better than that.
Yeah.
And who would have thought a year ago, Indiana, we'd be acting like Indiana was a great home game, because back in the day, they were so bad. But I can't believe we are here. This once again is our last episode before the season starts. Technically speaking, we probably could do another one before and predict Albany and go through that game. But we kind of stopped doing that. I think a year ago we stopped. We just kind of went to one episode a week because I didn't really feel the need to do an episode where all we did was just talk about the upcoming game and predict it. I'd rather wait till the game's over with and have kind of a reaction to it. Yeah. But yes, so this will be the last episode until probably a couple days after the Albany game. Hope it goes well. I think I sent you something, Kolby, the other day. The last time Mark played Albany was in the
59-0.
Yep, was FCS tournament. It was 2023, so a couple years ago, and they won 59-0. And Mark had 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, had 50 yards on the ground. So he definitely played pretty good. It was in the month of December. It was cold out, and let's hope for a similar result going into riding that momentum going into Iowa State game. All right, well, that will do it for this episode. Thank you, Kolby, for joining. Obviously, Tyler, you're always here, but really enjoy when Kolby can get on the mic and talk some Iowa football with us. Hopefully, maybe you can join back on sometime this season.
We'll touch base after Iowa State, so we see how we're feeling.
That's it.
All right, that works for me. All right, well, that will do it. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.